Ford Flathead V8. When Ford introduced the Flathead V8 in 1932, it changed American automotive history forever. This wasn't the first V8, but it was the first one ordinary people could afford. Before it, 8-cylinder engines were reserved for luxury brands like Cadillac or Packard. Henry Ford's engineers designed a simple, cast-iron, monoblock V8 that could be mass-produced cheaply while still delivering smooth power and reliability. The first version displaced 221 cubic inches and produced 65 horsepower, modest by later standards, but revolutionary at the time. It brought 8-cylinder performance to the average driver, powering everything from family sedans to police cruisers. The engine's mechanical layout, a side valve or flathead design, placed valves beside the cylinders, simplifying construction and lowering costs. What it sacrificed in breathing efficiency, it made up for in accessibility and durability. Hot rodders were the ones who truly turned the Flathead into a legend. After World War II, surplus engines were cheap, plentiful, and easy to modify. Racers bored them out, added dual carburetors, and tuned ignition timing to extract double or triple the stock power. The Flathead became the heartbeat of dry lake speed trials, early drag racing, and the entire hot rod culture that defined 1950s America. Beyond its cultural impact, the Flathead's 21-year production run proved its engineering endurance. It outlasted the Model T's 4-cylinder engine and was built in displacements up to 255 cubic inches for trucks and Mercury cars. Its deep, throaty exhaust note became instantly recognizable, the sound of American ingenuity and rebellion. By the early 1950s, overhead valve engines began to replace the Flathead, offering more power and efficiency. But no engine has ever symbolized Ford's influence on American performance quite like it. Ward's Automotive named it one of the 10 best engines of the 20th century, a tribute to the motor that brought V8 power to the masses, inspired a generation of mechanics and racers, and laid the foundation for everything that followed in Detroit's performance legacy. Chevrolet Small Block V8. Few engines have defined American performance like Chevrolet's Small Block V8. Introduced in 1955, it wasn't just another power plant. It was a revolution in engineering simplicity and mass appeal. Designed by engineer Ed Cole, the first version displaced 265 cubic inches and produced 162 horsepower in the debut year Corvette and Bel Air. It was smaller, lighter, and more efficient than anything Detroit's competitors had built, weighing about 150 pounds less than most rival V8s. The secret was its architecture, a compact, short-stroke design that allowed high revs and easy serviceability. Chevrolet's small block quickly became the foundation for an entire generation of American cars and trucks. It evolved into displacements ranging from 283 to 400 cubic inches, with the 350 becoming its most famous iteration. That 350 cubic inch version, introduced in 1967, became synonymous with American muscle, powering Camaros, Corvettes, Chevelles, and countless others. The small block's appeal was its versatility. It could be built mild or wild, used in sedans or race cars, and rebuilt endlessly thanks to its simple pushrod layout and durable iron block. Mechanics loved it for its reliability. Racers loved it for its tunability. It became the heart of the American hot rodding scene, the engine kids learned to wrench on in garages across the country. Over the decades, the design evolved into the LS and LT engine families, keeping the same spirit of compact strength but adding modern aluminum construction, electronic fuel injection, and advanced combustion technology. Yet even today, the DNA of Ed Cole's 1955 design remains. With over 100 million small blocks produced, it's arguably the most successful engine in automotive history. It powered everything from pickup trucks and police cars to Le Mans winning race machines. Chevrolet's small block V8 didn't just power cars. It powered American identity. Affordable, durable, and endlessly adaptable, it became the mechanical heartbeat of a nation that loved performance, speed, and simplicity. Chrysler Firepower. Hemi V8. When Chrysler introduced the Firepower V8 in 1951, it wasn't just releasing another engine, it was introducing a new way of thinking about performance and efficiency, one that would change American engineering for decades. The Firepower was Chrysler's first-generation Hemi, named for its hemispherical combustion chambers. This design allowed air and fuel to flow more freely and burn more completely, producing more power per cubic inch than the flathead or wedge head engines of the era. The hemispherical chamber placed the spark plug at the center and used large opposing valves, creating a more efficient burn and higher compression ratios. The first Firepower displaced 331 cubic inches and produced 180 horsepower, an impressive figure for the early 1950s. Chrysler engineers built it like a precision instrument, forged crankshaft, high-flow heads, and a bottom end capable of withstanding significant stress. Within 2 years, It was powering the company's top-tier cars and dominating NASCAR, setting the stage for Chrysler's performance reputation. By 1955, the Firepower family expanded across Chrysler's brands, with smaller DeSoto and Dodge versions and even more powerful Chrysler variants. The 350, 4, and later 392 cubic inch versions became the go-to choice for racers, hot rodders, and engineers seeking raw strength and endurance. Beyond the track, the Firepower Hemi gave Chrysler a new image, sophisticated yet brutally capable. The name Hemi became synonymous with power. Its design would influence decades of engine development, inspiring everything from the 426 Hemi in the 1960s to the modern 6.4-liter engines still carrying the badge today. By 1958, the original Firepower was phased out in favor of lighter wedge head designs, but its legacy was cemented. It proved that advanced combustion geometry could create real-world performance and that engineering innovation could be marketed as excitement. The Firepower wasn't just an engine. It was Chrysler's declaration that Detroit could build world-class performance through ingenuity, not excess. It started a lineage that continues to define American horsepower more than 70 years later. Dodge 426 Elephant Hemi V8. When Dodge unleashed the 426 Hemi in 1964, it wasn't just building another big block engine, it was building a racing weapon. Officially called the 426 Hemi, but known everywhere as the Elephant, this 7.0-liter V8 earned its nickname for its sheer size, strength, and the thundering sound it made every time it fired up. The engine was developed for one purpose: to dominate NASCAR. Chrysler engineers used lessons from the earlier Firepower Hemi and scaled everything up. The 426 featured hemispherical combustion chambers, massive cross-flow cylinder heads, and oversized valves that allowed exceptional airflow. With a forged crankshaft, beefy connecting rods, and a block built to survive extreme loads, it could take abuse that would destroy lesser engines. In race trim, the early 426 Race Hemi produced well over 500 horsepower. It debuted at the 1964 Daytona 500 and immediately made headlines when Richard Petty's Hemi-powered Plymouth won by more than a lap. NASCAR quickly imposed new homologation rules, temporarily banning the engine until Chrysler made a production version available to the public. That street version arrived in 1966. Rated at 425 horsepower and 490 pound-feet of torque, it became available in cars like the Dodge Charger, Coronet, and Plymouth Cuda. Those numbers were conservative. Real output was often closer to 470 horsepower right off the showroom floor. The 426 Hemi's combination of brute force and engineering precision made it legendary in both stock car racing and drag racing. It became the foundation for the Mopar or no-car movement and cemented Dodge's identity as a performance brand. By 1971, tightening emission standards and rising fuel costs ended its production run, but its legend never faded. Decades later, the modern 5.7, 6.4, and supercharged Hellcat Hemis all trace their lineage back to that original Elephant. The 426 Hemi wasn't built to be practical, it was built to be unstoppable. And more than half a century later, it still stands as the ultimate symbol of raw American horsepower. Oldsmobile Rocket V8. In 1949, Oldsmobile launched the Rocket V8, the first high-compression, overhead valve V8 engine built for mass production. It wasn't just a technical achievement, it was the beginning of the American performance era. Displacing 303 cubic inches and producing 135 horsepower, the Rocket V8 arrived when most engines were still flatheads, running low compression and modest output. Its short-stroke, overhead valve design allowed for higher revs and better breathing, while its 7.5-to-1 compression ratio made it one of the most powerful engines available in a family sedan. Oldsmobile dropped the Rocket into its lightweight 88 model, creating a car that could outrun nearly anything on the road, including many early sports cars. It became the first real factory hot rod, winning NASCAR races from 1949 through 1951, and setting a standard for American power that every manufacturer would chase. The Rocket's reputation grew beyond racing. It inspired pop culture too, most famously in Jackie Brenston and Ike Turner's 1951 hit Rocket 88, often called the first rock and roll record. That song captured what the engine represented: speed, freedom, and the thrill of modern America. Over the years, the Rocket V8 evolved into larger displacements, 324, 371, and eventually 394 cubic inches, while maintaining the same mechanical architecture that made it durable and easy to tune. Each generation improved on the last, with higher compression, 4-barrel carburetors, and even more torque. By the early 1960s, Oldsmobile had fully embraced the Rocket identity, turning it into a brand hallmark. Emblems, advertising, and even car names carried the Rocket badge. It was more than a power plant. It was the core of Oldsmobile's identity. The Rocket V8 ended production in 1964, replaced by newer, high-output designs, but its influence never faded. It was the first engine to prove that mass-market cars could be fast, reliable, and exciting, a combination that shaped the entire muscle car movement. The Rocket V8 didn't just power cars. It powered an idea that performance belonged to everyone, not just the wealthy. Pontiac 389 Trophy V8. The 389 cubic inch Trophy V8 was the heartbeat of Pontiac's muscle car revolution. Introduced in 1959, it embodied everything that made the brand's performance image explode during the 1960s. Power, accessibility, and an unmistakable sense of speed. Pontiac's engineers, led by John DeLorean and Malcolm McKellar, designed the 389 as an evolution of Pontiac's earlier V8 architecture, but with a focus on higher performance and stronger internals. The engine featured a robust bottom end, free-flowing cylinder heads, and a short-stroke layout that delivered broad, usable torque. Depending on tune and carburation, output ranged from 260 horsepower in mild trims to over 360 in high-performance versions. It didn't take long for the 389 to become legendary. In 1964, Pontiac's newly minted GTO, a mid-size Tempest stuffed with the 389 Trophy V8, became the car that defined the muscle era. With a 4-barrel carburetor, it produced 325 horsepower. With the optional tri-power setup, 3 2-barrel carburetors, it jumped to 348. In road tests, it ran quarter miles in the low 14 seconds, beating cars that cost thousands more. The engine's flexibility made it a winner on the street and the track. It powered full-size Bonnevilles, Catalinas, and Grand Prix to countless NHRA victories, while still being civilized enough for daily driving. The Trophy name came from Pontiac's success in NASCAR and drag racing, where the 389 helped cement the brand's performance credibility. Beyond its power, the 389 represented the spirit of Pontiac's wide-track era. Cars that handled better, looked sharper, and delivered excitement. It was the perfect blend of engineering, precision, and youthful attitude. By 1967, the 389 gave way to the larger 400 V8, but its legacy lived on in every Pontiac performance engine that followed. The 389 wasn't just an engine, it was a turning point, the one that transformed Pontiac from a conservative GM division into the symbol of American muscle. Buick 3800 V6. The Buick 3800 V6 wasn't designed to shock anyone with horsepower, but it quietly became one of the most successful and enduring engines in American automotive history. Over its 30-year lifespan, it powered everything from family sedans and minivans to sports coupes and even turbocharged performance cars. Originally developed from Buick's 1960s 198 cubic inch V6, the 3800 3.8 liters arrived in the late 1970s as a thoroughly re-engineered, smoother, and more reliable power plant. It combined the compact efficiency of a V6 with the torque characteristics of a V8, producing around 110 to 150 horsepower in its early versions, but with exceptional fuel economy for the era. By the late 1980s, the engine evolved into the series' first 3800, featuring sequential fuel injection and improved balancing for smoothness. In the 1990s, the series' second refined it further with lighter construction, higher compression, and more power, up to 205 horsepower in naturally aspirated form and 240 horsepower with the Eaton M90 supercharger. That supercharged version, found in cars like the Buick Regal GS and Pontiac Grand Prix GTP, could outrun V8 Mustangs in the quarter mile while delivering near 30 miles per gallon highway mileage. But perhaps its greatest strength was durability. The 3800 was known for reaching 200,000 miles with minimal maintenance. Mechanics appreciated its simple pushrod layout, accessible components, and bulletproof bottom end. Buick's engineers managed to blend refinement, efficiency, and longevity in a way few engines ever matched. Even luxury brands used it. Cadillac, Oldsmobile, and Chevrolet all borrowed versions for their models. When production ended in 2008, after more than 25 million units, it marked the close of an era. The 3800 V6 had become a symbol of American practicality, an engine that outlasted trends, balanced power and economy, and built a reputation one reliable mile at a time. It wasn't glamorous, but it was great. A piece of engineering that quietly did everything right. Cadillac V16. When Cadillac unveiled its V16 engine in 1930, it wasn't aiming for practicality. It was aiming for perfection. At a time when most Americans were tightening their belts, Cadillac built an engine that represented pure mechanical luxury, the ultimate statement of engineering prestige. The V16 was a masterpiece. Designed under Owen Nacker, it was a 7.4-liter 452 cubic inch engine with an overhead valve layout and a 45-degree V-angle, producing 165 horsepower, an astonishing figure for its time. Each cylinder bank had its own carburetor, fuel pump, and distributor, ensuring unmatched smoothness and balance. Every moving part was meticulously finished and balanced by hand. The engine ran with an almost electric stillness, free of vibration or harshness. Its power delivery was effortless, and it transformed Cadillac's reputation overnight. The V16 powered models, known as the Series 452, were long, elegant, and silent, capable of cruising at 80 miles per hour in near silence when most cars struggled to maintain half that speed. More than an engine, it was a symbol of engineering dominance. Cadillac wasn't chasing profit with the V16. It was making a statement to Rolls-Royce, Hispano-Suiza, and Duesenberg that America could build the finest automobiles in the world. Each engine was hand-assembled and tested for hours before installation. The attention to detail was unmatched, even down to polished valve covers and color-matched components. In 1938, the engine was redesigned as a 7.1-liter Flathead version, trading some sophistication for simpler manufacturing. Output remained similar, but the Great Depression had already taken its toll. Only a few thousand V16 Cadillacs were ever built, each one a work of art. By 1940, production ended as the market shifted towards smaller, more efficient cars. Yet, the V16's legacy never faded. It remains the pinnacle of American pre-war engineering, a demonstration of what happens when cost is no object and craftsmanship is everything. The Cadillac V16 wasn't built to move the masses. It was built to move minds. To prove that American engineering could achieve absolute excellence, Studebaker V8. In 1951, Studebaker became one of the first American automakers outside the Big Three to develop its own overhead valve V8. At a time when Ford and Chevrolet were still refining flathead and inline designs, Studebaker's engineers built an engine that was years ahead of its time, compact, efficient, and remarkably strong. The original Studebaker V8 displaced 232 cubic inches and produced 120 horsepower, impressive for a lightweight, mid-priced car. Its design philosophy focused on durability and high compression. With a forged crankshaft, solid lifters, and a gear-driven camshaft, the engine could handle internal stresses that many competitors' designs could not. It was engineered for long life and smooth operation, something Studebaker quietly took pride in. As the decade progressed, the V8 evolved through several displacements, 259, 289, and eventually 304 cubic inches in its performance forms. Studebaker also offered versions with higher compression ratios, reaching as much as 14:1 for racing applications. The engine proved incredibly adaptable, powering sedans, trucks, and later the sleek Avanti Sports Coupe. The high point came in the early 1960s with the supercharged R-Series engines. The R2, introduced in 1963, used a Paxton centrifugal supercharger to push output to 289 horsepower from just 289 cubic inches. Later, the R3 version with a 304.5 cubic inch displacement topped 335 horsepower performance, on par with the best big blocks from Detroit's largest automakers. These engines cemented Studebaker's reputation for clever, resourceful engineering. Despite the company's limited size and budget, its V8s were among the toughest and most innovative of the era. Even after Studebaker closed its U.S. operations in 1963, the engines lived on in racing and hot rodding circles for years. The Studebaker V8 was proof that innovation didn't require a massive corporation. It showed that independent engineers could build world-class performance from modest resources, a lasting legacy of ingenuity in American automotive history. Packard Straight 8. The Packard Straight 8 was one of the smoothest and most refined engines of the pre-war era, a power plant that defined American luxury motoring for 3 decades. Introduced in 1924, it carried Packard's reputation for engineering excellence into the modern age and helped solidify the company's slogan, "Ask the man who owns one." Packard's inline 8 wasn't the first of its kind, but it set a new benchmark for refinement and mechanical quality. Its hallmark was smoothness. The engine used a long, balanced crankshaft with 9 main bearings, ensuring near-silent operation and almost total freedom from vibration. Its even firing order made it ideal for high-end touring cars, where quiet, effortless performance mattered more than brute force. Early versions displaced 357 cubic inches and produced around 85 horsepower, impressive for the 1920s. Over the years, displacement and power steadily grew. The final iteration, the 359 cubic inch Thunderbolt 8 introduced in 1954, produced 212 horsepower, a remarkable figure for a straight 8 at the time. It featured modern upgrades such as a 4-barrel Carter carburetor, an aluminum head, hydraulic lifters, and an 8.7-to-1 compression ratio, allowing it to compete directly with newer V8 designs. What made the Packard Straight 8 special wasn't just its specifications, it was its character. The engine delivered seamless torque across the rev range, ideal for Packard's heavy luxury sedans. It was known for starting effortlessly, idling silently, and delivering its power with grace. Owners valued it not only for its strength, but also for its longevity. Many examples ran for decades with minimal maintenance. By the mid-1950s, however, the world had changed. The V8 had become the symbol of modernity and power, and Packard could no longer justify building a straight 8 when competitors offered lighter, more advanced engines. The straight 8's final appearance in 1954 marked the end of an era. For 30 years, the Packard Straight 8 represented the pinnacle of pre-war American engineering. Smooth, dignified, and impeccably built. It powered some of the most elegant cars ever made, and remains a symbol of a time when craftsmanship and quiet power defined luxury. Lincoln V12. During the 1930s and 1940s, Lincoln built its reputation on refinement and smoothness, and nothing embodied that more than its signature V12 engines. From 1932 to 1948, Lincoln became the only American manufacturer to offer an exclusive lineup of V12-powered automobiles, engines that symbolized mechanical sophistication and quiet luxury. The first of these, the 448 cubic inch KB V12, introduced in 1932, was a marvel of craftsmanship. Producing 150 horsepower, it featured aluminum pistons, dual carburetors, and a counterbalanced crankshaft for perfect smoothness. This massive, hand-built engine powered Lincoln's flagship luxury cars and rivaled the best from Packard, Duesenberg, and Cadillac. Its seamless power delivery and virtually vibration-free operation made Lincoln a serious competitor in the world of elite automobiles. In 1936, Lincoln replaced the big KB V12 with a smaller, more modern 414 cubic inch version, and later the 292 and 305 cubic inch Zephyr V12s. These new engines were designed for the sleek Lincoln Zephyr and Continental models, which introduced aerodynamic styling and brought the V12's refinement to a wider market. The Zephyr's 110 horsepower V12 was compact and quiet, perfectly suited for long-distance touring. However, its flathead design made it complex to maintain, and overheating issues became a challenge for mechanics. Despite that, the cars themselves, especially the Lincoln Continental, became icons of pre-war elegance and design, admired by celebrities and industrialists alike. By the late 1940s, post-war manufacturing realities and a shift towards simpler, more powerful V8s ended Lincoln's V12 era. The company transitioned to V8 power in 1949, marking the end of one of the most refined engine lineages in American automotive history. Lincoln's V12 engines were never built for speed records or racing headlines. They were built for smoothness, quietness, and grace. Engines that didn't shout power but whispered it. For nearly 2 decades, they stood as a symbol of Lincoln's dedication to engineering perfection and effortless luxury. Hudson Hornet 308. In the early 1950s, the Hudson Hornet's 308 cubic inch straight 6 engine became a legend that proved brute force wasn't the only way to win races. At a time when most competitors were switching to V8 power, Hudson doubled down on refining its inline 6, and the result was one of the most dominant racing engines of its era. The 308 was a flathead, or L-head, design, producing 145 horsepower in stock form. On paper, that wasn't extraordinary, but the engine's secret weapon was torque. Its large displacement and long stroke configuration produced immense low-end pulling power, delivering thrust where V8s needed revs. In 1952, Hudson introduced the twin-H power option, dual single-barrel carburetors on a high-flow intake, which boosted output to around 170 horsepower. Tuned race versions were rumored to make over 220. This engine's combination of torque and balance made the Hornet unbeatable on the track. NASCAR's early years were dominated by Hudson, with driver Herb Thomas and others claiming multiple championships between 1951 and 1954. The Hornet's unibody construction gave it superior handling, while the 308's low center of gravity and relentless mid-range power made it nearly untouchable on short ovals. Mechanically, the 308 was as tough as it was clever. Its block was overbuilt, its crankshaft stout, and its cooling system exceptionally robust, qualities that helped it survive the rigors of racing. Hudson's engineering department squeezed everything possible from the Flathead design, proving that thoughtful refinement could rival raw horsepower. By 1955, Hudson was merged into American Motors Corporation, and the Hornet's straight-six era ended, but its legend lived on. The 308 became the engine that defied convention, showing that superior balance, torque, and engineering could beat more powerful rivals. The Hudson Hornet 308 wasn't just fast, it was a mechanical underdog that rewrote the rules of American performance. AMC V8. The AMC V8 marked the moment when American Motors stepped up from being a small, economical carmaker to a serious performance contender. Introduced in 1956, the engine proved that AMC's engineers could compete with the best from Detroit's Big Three by designing a compact, durable, and surprisingly powerful V8 entirely in-house. The first generation of the AMC V8 came in displacements from 250 to 327 cubic inches. Unlike some competitors' engines, it used a deep skirt block and a short, stiff crankshaft for rigidity. It was relatively lightweight, yet built to handle high compression and sustained highway speeds. The top 327 cubic inch version made up to 270 horsepower, impressive for a company known mostly for Rambler sedans. By the mid-1960s, AMC had refined the formula. The second-generation engines, introduced in 1966, included the 290, 343, and later 390 cubic inch versions. These engines were more compact and featured improved cylinder heads and better breathing. The 390 in particular became the brand's high-performance centerpiece, delivering 325 horsepower in cars like the AMX and Javelin SST. The AMC V8's versatility was key to its success. It powered everything from family-oriented ambassadors to high-revving muscle cars. It was simple to service, tough under load, and capable of serious performance, with minimal modification. In racing, AMC leveraged the same architecture for their Trans Am efforts, proving that their small company could compete with Ford and Chevrolet on the track. While AMC's corporate resources were limited, its V8s were engineered with remarkable foresight. They emphasized compact design, efficient production, and long-term reliability, traits that kept them in use well into the 1970s. The AMC V8 gave the company credibility it had never had before. It helped transform AMC from a niche economy brand into a legitimate performance player, laying the groundwork for icons like the AMX, Javelin, and Rebel Machine. It may not have been the loudest or most famous V8 of its era, but it was one of the most resourceful, a testament to AMC's ingenuity and determination to stand toe-to-toe with giants. DeSoto Firedome Hemi V8. When DeSoto introduced the Firedome Hemi V8 in 1952, it brought advanced Chrysler engineering into a more affordable, mid-tier market. This engine proved that high performance and sophistication weren't limited to top-end luxury models, and it helped DeSoto stand out as one of Chrysler's most innovative divisions. The Firedome used the same hemispherical combustion chamber concept pioneered by Chrysler's Firepower V8 a year earlier, but this wasn't a simple downsizing exercise. DeSoto's engineers created a smaller, more compact version that preserved the Hemi's efficiency and airflow advantages while keeping weight and cost manageable. The initial version displaced 276 cubic inches and produced 160 horsepower, strong numbers for the early 1950s, especially in the mid-price segment. Over the next few years, displacement and output steadily increased. The 291, 330, and 341 cubic inch variants delivered improved performance with compression ratios up to 8.5 to 1. The final iteration, the 345 cubic inch Adventurer Hemi, introduced in 1957, was the pinnacle, rated at 345 horsepower with dual 4-barrel carburetors. It gave DeSoto one of the best power-to-weight ratios in Detroit and made the brand's top models genuine performance cars. The Firedome V8 combined elegance and muscle in a way that perfectly suited DeSoto's image. The engine ran smoothly, made effortless torque, and responded beautifully to tuning. It brought luxury-grade refinement to everyday drivers while still offering the punch to compete with bigger, more expensive machines. By 1958, the Hemi era at DeSoto ended as Chrysler shifted to lighter, less expensive wedge-head engines. But the Firedome's legacy endured. It demonstrated that advanced combustion technology could succeed beyond flagship models and influenced the design of performance engines across all Chrysler divisions. The DeSoto Firedome Hemi was more than a scaled-down firepower. It was proof that world-class engineering could be democratized. In just 5 years, it helped turn DeSoto from a mid-level mark into a serious performance name, leaving a legacy far greater than its brief production run. Nash Rambler Straight 6. The Nash Rambler Straight 6 was an engine built on practicality, refinement, and forward-thinking design. It wasn't designed to break speed records or win races. It was built to redefine how Americans thought about efficiency and reliability in everyday cars. Introduced in 1940, this inline-six powered the innovative Nash 600, America's first mass-produced car with unibody construction. That combination of lightweight design and an efficient engine made the Nash 600 one of the most economical full-sized cars of its time, capable of achieving over 25 miles per gallon during an era when most cars barely managed. 15. The Rambler Straight 6 was produced in several displacements, starting at 173 cubic inches and later expanding to 184 and 195.6 cubic inches. It used a rugged cast iron block, overhead valves, and a simple, accessible layout that made it easy to maintain. Power output ranged from 75 to 125 horsepower, depending on year and configuration. Modest, but entirely adequate for its lightweight vehicles. What made this engine remarkable was its adaptability. It powered everything from compact sedans and wagons to Nash's later Rambler models, which became synonymous with American practicality. After Nash merged with Hudson to form American Motors Corporation in 1954, the same engine architecture continued under AMC's banner, evolving into one of the longest-lived straight-six designs in U.S. automotive history. The 195.6 version in particular became a workhorse, smooth, economical, and nearly indestructible. It powered cars well into the early 1960s and laid the foundation for AMC's next-generation six-cylinder family, which would go on to include the famous 232 and 258 engines of the 1970s. The Rambler Straight 6 wasn't glamorous, but it embodied the core of Nash's philosophy: intelligent engineering for real-world driving. It offered Americans a car that was modern, efficient, and affordable, the right solution at the right time. Its legacy lives on as one of the most quietly influential power plants in American automotive history, bridging the gap between pre-war innovation and the practical, efficient cars that would define the post-war era.